The Rangers hold off the Canes for a big 4-3 win in Game 1 of Round 2. And I gotta ask, is there anybody left out there who still doesn't think that Mika Zibanejad is a number one center?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blueshirts fans, to episode number 1061 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments, unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go, now free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Rangers improved to 5-0 in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Obviously, they sweep the Caps, and they get off to a nice start in round 2 against the Carolina Hurricanes, a series where the Rangers are technically the underdogs. If you look at, the betting odds and whatnot, they have the Canes as the favorites to win this series, but that's just fine. We've seen in the past, the Rangers do tend to embrace that underdog mentality. I feel like this year they've also figured out a way to, be comfortable with being the big dogs in the yard too. But regardless, maybe they don't care about any of that at all. Bottom line, it's a hockey game. You got to go out and outplay your opponent. The Rangers did that in this game, and they found a way to hang on for the 4-3 victory. And a big reason why they were able to do that is that Mika Zibanejad continues to just play with his head on fire in the Stanley Cup playoffs. It is just 5 games, but man, is he feeling it right now. And the question I propose to everybody, I said it just a second ago in the intro, but I'll say it again. Is there anybody left out there who does not think that Mika Zibanejad is a number one center in this league? And it might depend on what your definition of that is. To me, I tend to take it very literally. Bottom line, there's 32 teams in this league. So to me, there's 32 number one centers. It doesn't need to be like one center from every team. Obviously the Oilers have some amazing centers. You got 3 that are, in that list. But the bottom line, is there any way possible there's 32 centers in this league that are better than Mika Zibanejad? And if the answer is no, then Mika Zibanejad is indeed a number one center. And for that matter, so is Vincent Trocheck. They've got 2 outstanding centers right there. Mika Zibanejad came under fire from Ranger fans earlier this year. He had that really long stretch where he just went forever and ever without scoring an even strength goal. And hey, look, that's not an unfair critique. They're paying this guy a lot of money, and you need some production, and it did go on for a long time. I myself said that they need more out of Mika Zibanejad, but I always thought he would get there. I always thought he would figure it out. And, if his track record was any indication, that's what he was going to do. And of course, as we found out, that's what he did. Found it quite a bit down the stretch in the regular season, and then obviously here in the playoffs, really feeling it. Just 5 games, but he's got 3 goals and 7 assists after this performance today. So forget about point per game player. Again, small sample size, but it's the biggest time of the year. It's the playoffs. It's the biggest 5 games the Rangers have played all season, and he is passing with flying colors. A 2-point per game player thus far for Mika Zibanejad in the playoffs. And of course, the goals were nice. He scores the first 2 goals for the Rangers in this series. First one set up by Roslovic, who continues to play well. He's another Ranger that I feel like recently has really played, some of his best hockey since joining the Blueshirts. But a great play by Jack Roslovic. He's got the puck at the blue line, or at the red line, rather. He picked it up in the neutral zone, received a pass, goes over the blue line. He really did a nice job making it look like he was going to try to power his way to the net. And I think the defenseman kind of bit on that and kind of, pulled back toward the net to try to take that away from him. Roslovic instead uses his speed to get to the outside, goes around behind the net, passes in front, and Mika Zibanejad's just not going to miss this. He's right there on the doorstep. Half the net is wide open, and he puts it home. Great play by Roslovic. Great finish by Mika. The second goal, of course, occurred on the power play. Just took them 8 seconds. That's all it took for the Rangers to score on the man advantage. You get the Trocheck face-off win. Panarin Fox, a little bit of pitch and catch. It eventually goes to Trocheck. Trocheck in deep to Kreider. Kreider behind the back. And awesome anticipation by Mika Zibanejad here. He was kind of at the top of the zone and kind of moved in once he saw everything developing. This, to me, looked like it was what the Rangers were attempting to do on this play. I don't know if it was like a set play, but it's one of those things where, okay, if we get into this situation, this is what we're going to look to do. And obviously, Mika crashed the net there, received the pass, and he scores again. And also had the primary assist on the Trocheck power play goal. He took a shot, it was stopped, but, Trocheck was there to bury the rebound. But, the points are great. We know that. Mika's importance to this team goes far beyond that. The guy's just a workhorse. He's a do-it-all center. He's on the ice in every big spot in every game. This game was, of course, no exception to that rule. We've talked about how good the Ranger penalty kill has been in the playoffs and how good it has needed to be because the Rangers can't stay out of the penalty box. Now, there were a couple of ticky-tack penalties called in this game. Certainly the one on Matt Rempe definitely comes to mind, but there were some penalties that were legit penalties on the Rangers, and obviously the PK needs to do its job. With that being the case, with the Rangers taking as many penalties as they have been, Mika Zibanejad's a big part of that. He's out there for 239, making plays all over the ice. We've talked about how he's got some of those, Johnny on the spot defensive plays where the Rangers are under fire and Mika will find the puck and he'll get it out of the zone or he'll skate away with it. He made a great play early in this game. One of those under the radar plays that not going to make top 10 plays of the night or anything like that. But you watch this play. It's a big play early in the game. First period, I believe it was Gustafsson. A Ranger defenseman had the puck behind the Ranger net, tried to move it. It got taken away by the Canes. Now, this is going to lead to at least a decent scoring chance for the Canes. But Mika, again, one of those Johnny on the spot kind of plays, takes the puck right away from the Hurricane player, skates away with it into the neutral zone. Crisis averted, no scoring chances for the Canes, and obviously picking up a teammate. Again, I believe it was Gustafsson. I watched the replay when it happened, wasn't able to really figure it out, but I want to say it was Gustafsson that had the errant pass there, and Mika picked up his teammate, so that's awesome too. And this is huge, and this is another thing that can kind of fly under the radar, possibly get missed, especially on a night where, Mika had the 3 points, but think of how this game ended. So you've got Jarvis scoring a goal for the Canes to knock the Ranger lead down to 4-3 with 1:45 to go. There were 5 faceoffs that happened after this goal by Jarvis the rest of the way here in the final 1:45. The Rangers won all 5 of them. The first 3 were all won by Trocheck, which is not surprising in the least. First of all, it's not surprising the Rangers would choose Trocheck to be out there in a situation like this, taking these big faceoffs late in the game. That's first and foremost. Beyond that, though, once Trocheck took his delay of game penalty, okay, well, now we just lost one of our go-to guys when we're up by a goal. And on top of that, he's the guy that's going to be out there taking faceoffs. So Mika had to step in. Mika had the first faceoff in the Ranger zone, and he won that. And, of course, Lindgren got tripped by Svechnikov seconds after. If Mika loses that faceoff, the Rangers could lose this game. And that's not – sounds a little dramatic, but it's not really that much of a stretch because if the Canes get possession there, they're 6-on-4, they're set up, and they got some time. I believe there were 40 seconds left in the game at that point. But Mika won the faceoff. Lindgren got to the puck, and then he draws the tripping penalty against Svechnikov. And then the next faceoff is in the Cane zone. Now, of course, they have to put their goalie back in because, the faceoff's in their zone. They got to get possession. But Mika won that faceoff too. And, that allowed the Rangers to kill a little bit of the clock. He came within inches of an empty net goal for the hat trick later. Wasn't meant to be, I guess. But again, Mika Zibanejad just doing it all for the Rangers, including, I forgot about this, he had a big hit on Chatfield in the neutral zone. The play was blown dead for an offside against the Rangers just, a couple of seconds after that. But, he basically just steamrolled him, ran him over. And, again, players, we saw Panarin deliver a big hit on Oshie in the previous round. We see a big hit from Mika here. That got the crowd going a little bit. We had Matthew Barnaby on the show. That was a lot of fun. And he talked about the Panarin hit and how, when a player like that dishes out a big hit like that, that's going to really get the boys going because you don't really expect that from a guy like Panarin. You don't really expect it from Mika Zibanejad either. But again, he steamrolled his guy here, so that was awesome. The only real misstep that Mika had in this game was when he decided to pass in the first. He could have had a hat trick in the first period. And there was a situation where Roslovic stole the puck, and he's really playing well, by the way. Shout out to Jack Roslovic, too. But Roslovic stole the puck, got it in deep to Mika. Mika's by himself with Freddie Anderson on the doorstep, and he makes a couple moves, and then he tries to leave a drop pass for Panarin, and Panarin couldn't quite get there in time. The Canes got it out of harm's way. So that was basically his one misstep in this game. I tweeted out, Mika, just be selfish and take the hat trick, because I think if he shoots here, very good chance that he's going to finish. He was obviously feeling it in this game, and there's a good chance that a goal was coming there for Mika Zibanejad. But regardless, still an amazing game for Mika, and somebody that, I mean, he's been their best player. To show me anybody that's been better, you could always throw Igor in there, but skaters and goalies, kind of apples and oranges. Bottom line, I think Mika Zibanejad has done more for the Rangers to be where they're at in the playoffs right now than probably anybody else. And I don't say that lightly. There's a lot of guys playing well, but I don't know that anybody's been playing any better than Mika Zibanejad. And honestly, if you look around the league, I mean, show me even on other teams, show me other players that are doing more to help their team than Mika Zibanejad currently is doing to help the Rangers right here and right now. So we're going to keep everything rolling. I want to turn our attention to Igor Shesterkin. He's been awesome. He'll have better box scores than this game, but I still thought he was very impressive and made some big saves for this team. We'll get to that in just a second. First, though, we definitely like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at all the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home those huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. All right, we'll go ahead and keep everything rolling here. Did want to let everybody know that the Locked On NFL Mock Draft is available now. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, with live reactions from local college football experts and even the fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so let's turn our attention to Igor Shesterkin, shall we? I mean, just as solid as a rock so far in the playoffs, and one of the reasons why the Rangers have won all 5 of their playoff games. Again, if you look at the box score of this one, okay, he stopped 22 of 25 shots. It's a solid afternoon. Certainly he'll have box scores, like I said, that are more impressive than this one, but he's really played well. And one thing I'll get out of the way here first, because some people might point this out. The Canes did hit a couple of posts early in this game, so I guess in some ways maybe the breaks went Igor's way early in this game. Be that as it may, though, any goalie will tell you those posts are part of the goalie equipment, and obviously, they didn't go in, so they don't count. It's really just as simple as that. But Igor Shesterkin, on top of just, winning all these games, making all these saves, coming up big in big spots, he just seems, and I've mentioned this in the past during the Cap series, he's just very much in control out there. He's in a good headspace. There were times in the past where he's let things snowball on him. He just seems very cool, calm, and collected, not getting too high or too low during the course of a game. Obviously, he gave up that goal to Jarvis to cut the lead down to 4-3 late in the third period. I believe 1:45 was the time remaining when Jarvis scored. And Igor had to make a couple of saves after that, including an impressive one where he moved to his left to make kind of a sliding save. I want to say Svechnikov took that shot. Regardless, though, it was a really nice save by Igor Shesterkin. And the Rangers thus far in the playoffs have really defended well around Igor Shesterkin, but when they need him to bail them out, which I don't think has happened like an obnoxious amount of times to the point where it's concerning. Rangers have mostly played some really solid team defense overall. Gave up a couple breakaways in this game. You don't really like to see that, but for the most part, they're defending very well. And Igor Shesterkin has been making those saves when he has to make those saves. A couple of big plays by Igor in this game. There was a power play for the Canes, and the Canes went 0 for 5 on the power play, by the way. The Rangers went 2 for 2, and the Rangers needed all of 25 seconds on the power play to score 2 goals. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in today's episode, in tomorrow's episode as well. We're going to break everything down from every angle in this series. But big save by Igor Shesterkin against Jake Gensel on one of the Canes' power plays, moving quickly, and some really good passing by the Canes, and Igor just stones him from in deep. Really nice play that also impressed me. And this just goes to show how much he's on his toes and how alert he is and how ready to go he is for these games. But the Canes have the puck in the Rangers zone. This guy's circling the net. He's coming out in front, and Igor's there. And there wasn't really a ton of resistance from the Ranger defense. You'd like to see the front of the net guarded a little bit better than it was here. But Igor reaches out with his stick, pokes the puck away, no problem. I believe that also was at the tail end of a power play. So Igor Shesterkin just doing his thing. And I will say, down the stretch in this game, Canes get that goal with a minute 45 to go. It's now 4-3, 1-goal game for the last minute 45 here. I'm nervous. You guys are probably nervous too. It's kind of hard not to be in the Stanley Cup playoffs because you just don't want to see that game get tied and go into overtime. But I got to say, I do feel better because I know we've got Igor Shesterkin. If we just had some average run-of-the-mill goalie who's, okay, he's a decent goalie, not anything special, you'd be a lot more nervous in a spot like that. But Igor's an elite goalie, and on top of that, possibly even more importantly, he is a clutch goalie. It does feel like he makes those big saves in those big spots when you really need to have them. And we saw him do that in this game, and we've seen him do that pretty much all season, other than that bad stretch that he went through for part of December and obviously into January there as well. They went with Jonathan Quick for a handful of games in a row, but Igor, that's his net. He's the guy, and he was awesome. And I do feel a little bit better. I felt like the Rangers would close it out. Again, I'm still nervous. Playoff hockey, we're all nervous. 1-goal game late in the game, we're all nervous. But the fact that we've got Igor Shesterkin there, just a little bit of a safety net, and he obviously did a great job. And even when you look at the goals that he gave up in this game, the first one took just a crazy deflection. Lafreniere got a piece of it, and then it bounced off the ice and kind of like skipped a little bit, almost looked like a rock, skipping across a pond, and then it just shot up into the air and went top shelf. There's not a whole lot you could do there. I don't think too many goalies are stopping that one. The second one was one of the aforementioned breakaways. So, he got beat there, but it's a breakaway. Not, no goalie is going to stop every breakaway that he faces. And then the third one was a scramble. He made an awesome save, and the Canes kind of got lucky because they were shooting here. Forget who it was, but somebody was taking the shot, and it did get through Igor, but it wasn't going to go into the net. It just so happens that it went right to a Kane on the other side of the net. He put it home. I believe that was Jarvis that got that one. So, there's no soft goals. It feels like if you're going to get a goal against Igor Shesterkin right now, you really, really, really have to earn it. It's going to be like a second or third chance kind of a thing where maybe there's a couple rapid fire shots in a row and he stops a couple of them and then you score on like the third one. That's possible. The puck takes a crazy bounce. We saw that in the first Carolina goal in this game, or, a nasty deflection. Maybe you can beat him that way. But as far as beating him clean, it's just not happening very often. It didn't happen very often during the end of the regular season. Barely happened at all against the Caps. The one soft goal was the Carlson goal, but Igor shut them down the rest of the way in that game. And that whole series is ancient history at this point. But Igor Shesterkin, again, locking it down, making the big saves when you really need to have them. And it just feels like, you got to do something special to get the puck past Igor Shesterkin right now. And as we've seen in the past, whether it's the Rangers, the Canes, or any team in hockey, if you're going up against a goalie, it's really got his A game. He's really feeling it. It can kind of lead to you trying to force things and looking for that perfect play. And that can kind of get you away from your game and get you away from what you do best. And that can kind of go sideways on you. And hopefully, we're not there yet. This is just game one, and there's a ton of work to be done here. Two excellent teams battling. I think it's going to be a long series, like I said. But if you can get a team off its game just a little bit and have your goalie get inside their head just a little bit, that's an edge that can make the difference in a series like this. It's a best of 7. And again, I do think it'll go at least 6. And if that happens, little things like that can make a big difference. Maybe Igor can just mess with them a little bit by continuing to shut things down. And look, he gave up 3 goals today. It's not like the Canes did nothing. They converted on a couple of their opportunities. But again, I just feel like Igor's really playing well, really in a good headspace. And he made some big time saves in this game for the Rangers. It's been awesome to see. And, he's so much better than what he showed in January. I think we all knew that. And it's awesome that he's playing his best, at the best time of the year here. Very, very cool to see. So we're keeping everything rolling in just a second. There was kind of a storyline coming out of this game where really during the game, not so much coming out of this game, but during the game where the Canes had a pretty sizable advantage on the Rangers in terms of time on the attack, time spent in the offensive zone. I'm going to have some thoughts on that, talk about whether I think it's a big deal, a cause for concern, or not really a big deal at all. We will get to that in just a second. But first, definitely want to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Unique stickers. You can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique minigames like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or on the App Store. Game on. Okay, so the Rangers, I guess if you want to find like something to nitpick about this game, and again, it wasn't perfect. These are good teams. You're not going to have many perfect wins. It's gonna be a battle. It's gonna be a battle all the way with this team in this round. Something though that I think kind of stood out was the amount of time the Canes spent in the Rangers zone against the amount of time that the Rangers spent in the Canes zone. And they showed this a couple of times during the broadcast. At the very end of this game, there was less than a minute left when this popped up on the screen. So these aren't the exact final numbers, but obviously it's very close. The Canes had spent 1809 in the Ranger zone. The Rangers had spent 934 in the Canes zone. So the Canes almost doubling up the Rangers in that department. And there were times where you definitely felt that. There were times where it felt like the Rangers were back on their heels just a little bit, and the ice was tilted a little bit in the Canes' favor. It wasn't ideal. I certainly, especially when the Rangers are up by a goal for parts of the third period and then 2 goals and then back down to 1 goal. Yeah, a little more offensive zone time would have been nice for the Rangers, a little bit more sustained pressure, even just a sustained offensive zone pressure, possession. That would have at least been a step in the right direction for the Rangers. That was few and far between. The Rangers went about 10 minutes in the third period without getting a shot on goal. So again, there were times where you felt that, and it felt like the Rangers were back on their heels, and the Canes were kind of controlling play. You know what? Credit to the Canes for doing that, for being able to do that. There's a couple of reasons, though, why I'm not too worried about this. It's something to definitely keep an eye on going forward. We'll see how everything shakes out in Game 2. But to begin with, game flow, the Canes were in this game down for pretty much all of it. It was tied at 1-1 at one point, and obviously when the game starts, it's scoreless. But the Canes end up, force the issue a little bit, take some chances, and obviously the Rangers were focusing on defense. You don't want to go into too much of a shell, but game flow, I think, played at least a little bit of a hand. Secondly, and more importantly, a reason why I'm not overly concerned about this, the Rangers handled it, through 2 periods. And again, this is with the Canes starting to build an advantage here in terms of time spent in the offensive zone against the Rangers. The Canes, through 2 periods, despite doing that, had all of 12 shots on goal. So yeah, the Canes were in the Rangers zone, but they weren't really doing a whole lot with it. There weren't even a ton of shots on goal, much less, quality scoring chances at that point. Now, the Canes did in the third period end up with 13 shots on goal. So they ran their total up to 25 and actually outshot the Rangers 25-23. But I still thought the Rangers, held their own for as much time as the Canes spent in the Rangers zone. I feel like the Rangers mostly defended well, kept the puck to the outside. Again, the Canes, they did score 3 goals. They did get some scoring chances here and there. But overall, for as much time as the Canes spent in the Rangers zone, I don't know that they had quality chance after quality chance after quality chance. It didn't really feel like that. And obviously when they did, we mentioned Igor, he was able to make the saves. But that's a couple of reasons. One more reason I'll throw out there as far as, why I'm not overly concerned about this. The Canes got 5 power plays in this game. The Rangers only got 2. And honestly, as I mentioned that, the Rangers taking penalties and giving the Canes so many power play chances, that's a bigger concern than, the Canes' time on the attack, at least for me. But Canes in this game, 5 power play chances. Rangers only had 2. And as I mentioned, the Rangers scored very early in both of their power plays. So really, the Rangers were only out there for about 25 seconds on the power play. So that's time in the offensive zone that, isn't really going to add up. With the Canes, 5 power plays, you're going to spend a lot of time in the offensive zone when you're on the man advantage. I mean, we all watch hockey. We all understand that. So I feel like that had something to do with it as well. Now, could the Rangers have done a little bit better? Could they have gotten pucks a little deeper? Could they have gotten their forecheck working a little bit better in the second period, the third period? Could they have kind of grinded their way to an extended offensive zone possession? Yeah, I mean, they could have done that a little bit better. But for the most part, they held up. And again, something to keep an eye on. I'm very curious to see if there's more of this in game 2. Maybe if it happens again, then you're a little bit more worried about it. But for the time being, they're making a big deal about it on the broadcast. And I get it. It's a stat that certainly jumps out. But with that said, I think all those, kind of factors that I just listed there, that had more to do with it than anything else. The Rangers played well in this game. And, the Ranger naysayers will talk about how, they got lucky, that because they didn't spend as much time in the offensive zone as the Canes did. You know what? The way I see it, they still beat them. The Canes almost doubled them up in time spent in the offensive zone. Rangers beat them anyway. So that, I think, bodes well going forward. Again, there's no guarantees and long way to go. This is far from over, this series between the Rangers and the Canes, but it is a good start for the Rangers. I did also want to throw out an unsung hero of the day before we call it here, and I'm going to go with K'Andre Miller. Just feel like he's been steady in the playoffs. There were times this season where he was scuffling a little bit. We've talked about how important the Ranger penalty kill has been, really all season, but certainly in the playoffs as well. He was out there on the PK for longer than any other Ranger. He spent 426 on the ice while the Rangers were shorthanded. And as we mentioned, Canes went 0 for 5. Obviously, Miller has a hand in that. He was also a +1, blocked a couple of shots, 2 shots to be exact. One thing that kind of made me nervous, I'll admit, at the end of this game, maybe not like the very end, but probably with about like 2 minutes to go or so, they actually put Trouba and Miller back out there together. And again, that's a pairing that we've seen work in the past, but this season it just wasn't clicking, and they obviously broke the two of them up. And you can kind of understand why they did this, because, when you've got a situation where it's a 1-goal game and it's late, they're probably not going to put Gustafsson out there. So you're looking at a situation where, you've got 5 defensemen that you're kind of rotating. And even Schneider, I think, is probably, he's 5th in the pecking order in a situation like that. They're going to look to go with, Trouba and Lindgren. A lot of times the two of them will be out there together. Miller and Fox are going to be out there too. But yeah, for one reason or another, Trouba and Miller ended up back out there. It did make me a little bit nervous, but obviously those guys, held it down. And then one more big play for K'Andre Miller in this game. And again, it's one of those things that flies a little bit under the radar, but there's just over a minute left. By this point, it's 4-3. Puck is loose in front of the Ranger net. And Miller just did a nice job, finding it, getting out of there, getting out of harm's way, because the puck was sitting there for a second or two, and Miller found it, got rid of it, and now obviously the Rangers went on to win this game, held them off, and now lead the series 1-0. I did want to go ahead, one last thing here, just go through the schedule with you guys. I mean, some of you have probably looked it up by now, and in fact, I'm going to refresh this page, because the last time I checked, there were no start times listed for any of these games, and I'm just curious if any of them, okay, they do. They actually announced the start time for games 2 and 3. When I checked this before I hit record, there were no start times listed for any of the remaining games of this series. So to take you guys through it, game 2 going to be on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Game 3 going to be on Thursday, also at 7 p.m. From this point on, they have not announced any start times, but then you've got Saturday game 4, Monday the 13th is game 5, Thursday the 16th is game 6, and then Saturday the 18th is game 7. So it's every other night, with the one exception being there's an extra day off between games 5 and game 6. So mark your calendars, put it all down, do what you got to do, and let's go Rangers, man. They're rolling right now and playing some great hockey, and obviously we hope they can keep this thing rolling and hold serve at home, get that win in game 2, and take it from there. But we will be back with another episode. I meant to mention this earlier, but definitely stick around. A lot was made of officiating in this game. I'm not going to go off on the officials, but I do want to talk about Matt Rempe and how it feels like he is certainly a marked man. We're going to cover that in our next episode for the everydayers. For anybody that might be new here, come back tomorrow. we'll have that episode out for you guys. Going to talk about some other things as well. But yeah, that penalty that was called on Rempe today was inexcusable. There was not inexcusable on Rempe's part, inexcusable on the referee's part. Stahl pushes Rempe into the goalie, and Rempe gets 2 minutes for being shoved into the goalie and being bigger than his opponents. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that. I've got quite a bit to say about that, and we'll get to that in tomorrow's episode. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.